Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 216 has several moving parts and a few amendments. If the gentleman Wayne would have a little mercy and patience on me, I'll work through them for us. Through the session, we have continued to work hard to improve our election process for the Commonwealth. The primary sponsor has worked with the Clerks Association to make sure these changes are implemented ahead of this year's election cycle. This bill expands our existing audit process, moves up the deadline for transition to universal paper ballots, ensures election machines are not hooked up to the internet, as well inserts a few other cleanup provisions. So let me work through some of the major highlights here before we get to the floor amendments. I guess let's first call for the House Committee sub, Mr. Speaker.
Clerk, please report.
House Committee Substitute 1 to Senate Bill 216.
Gentleman Bourbon.
Move for passage.
Motion is for the adoption of House Committee Substitute 1. Is there any discussion on the committee sub? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Committee Substitute 1 is adopted. Gentleman from Bourbon.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. With the committee sub on the floor, so let's look at the major highlights. We're increasing the number of independent inquiries completed by the Attorney General from no less than 5%. We're increasing that to at least 12 counties. That's up to 10%. Requires all voting machines to be paper ballot backup by January 1st of 2024. This, along with a recommended $25 million appropriation in this year's budget, will help that to occur. This prohibits voting equipment to be connected to any network. That includes the internet, communicating with any device external to our already existing voting system. For a period of 30 days, the voting equipment and the ballot boxes, they shall be secured and locked up under video surveillance. We'll have a floor amendment coming up, more about that one in a minute. It changes the filing requirements. So in a non-election year, you file one annual report. Unless you're running for statewide office, then you'll file quarterly reports. Places the Secretary of State as the chair of the State Board of Elections. It removes the requirement that a candidate designate a treasurer at the office which they file for candidacy, and instead requires that office where they file to submit that to KREF. It requires the county clerk and the Secretary of State to display on their websites information related to those candidates. There's more on that on page 29 if you want to read exactly what that information is. Finally, allows a member of the General Assembly to contribute up to $5,000 from their campaign account to a political party or a caucus campaign committee. Mr. Speaker, I'm lucky to have several friends with me today, including the gentleman from Kenton 65 with a friendly floor amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to now yield to the gentleman from Jefferson 36 for a friendly floor amendment.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Jefferson 36.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask the clerk to report House Floor Amendment 2.
Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 2 to Senate Bill 216.
Gentleman from Jefferson.
This is a friendly amendment that simply tightens up a line of the one provision of the bill. It says that the bill basically requires 30 days of recording. Well, I wanted to make sure that clarified it, that it wasn't a loop system that would overwrite, so that this requires storage capacity to retain 60 consecutive days, so that the last day of the 30-day period would be kept for 30 days. So I move passage if there are no questions.
Motion is for the adoption of House Floor Amendment 2. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. House Floor Amendment 2 is adopted. Gentleman from Bourbon.
Speaker, barring any questions, I move for passage of Senate Bill 216 as amended by House Committee Sub 1, House Floor Amendment 1, and House Floor Amendment 2.